You probably don't realize it yet, but if you're watching this, there's a reason. You're not ordinary. You never were. Maybe you've always felt different, like something in you was ancient, primal, raw, and completely untamable. You weren't born to follow the light in the way others were taught. You were born to wield it, to bend it, to walk with it through the darkest corridors of existence. And that's exactly why demons fear you. Not because you're harmless, but because you're dangerous to illusions, to manipulation, to the false systems that feed on fear. You are what I call a dark chosen one. And today I need to tell you something that no one else will. The spiritual realm knows who you are. The beings who thrive in lower frequencies, those parasitic, deceptive entities we often call demons, they know your vibration. And they avoid it, not because you're pure light, but because you're something else entirely. Let's start with a truth that many spiritual teachers are afraid to say. Light without shadow is incomplete. The dark chosen ones were not sent here to float above reality. We were sent here to descend into it, to confront the filth, the distortion, the lies, and not flinch. Most people, when faced with darkness, run. They pray it away, sage it out, chant it into silence. But you stare it in the face, you study it, you understand it, and in that understanding you gain power over it. Demons fear touching you because they cannot manipulate your fear. You've already danced with your shadow. You've already made peace with your pain. You are not shocked by chaos, you embody order within it. That's the first reason they keep their distance. You've integrated what they feed on. Let's talk about fear. Fear is the currency of the lower realms. It's what demons thrive off of. Not always through horror and gore, that's amateur stuff. The real manipulation happens through doubt, shame, self-hatred, guilt. These are the frequencies that open portals into your energetic field. But the dark chosen one has already walked through their own fire. We've tasted shame. We've bled in the silence of our own isolation. And we didn't escape it, we consumed it. We learned to turn that poison into power. So now, when a dark entity approaches, it finds no cracks to crawl through, no vibrations low enough to anchor into. And so it recoils, not because we're protected, but because we're unavailable to their games.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
Another reason they fear you speak their language. Not in words, but in vibration. You understand the underworld. You've been to those places in yourself where most people refuse to go. And that gives you a horrifying advantage because you see them clearly. Demons are masters of disguise. They pretend to be light. They wear spiritual masks. They mimic guides and ancestors and messages from the divine. But your intuition isn't fooled. You've trained in the shadows. You know how manipulation feels in your gut. You know when something is trying to seduce, flatter, or distract you, and you call it out on sight. That kind of discernment is lethal to low vibrational entities. Because the moment they are seen, truly seen, their power dissolves. That's what you carry, vision born from the void. Let me ask you something deeply personal. When was the last time you honored your shadow instead of suppressing it? Because that's where your immunity lies. Demons don't fear perfection, they fear integration. They can't get to you when you've already accepted the parts of yourself they would try to weaponize. Your rage? You've made peace with it. Your lust? You've honored it. Your grief? You've let it become sacred. So now, when those entities show up to play on your unhealed wounds, they find there's nothing to play with. You've already turned your wounds into weapons. Your darkness is no longer a liability, it's your armor. There's also something far more ancient happening here, something encoded deep in your spiritual DNA. The dark chosen ones carry a kind of ancestral authority. We didn't just wake up in this life with these gifts. We've been forged across lifetimes of spiritual warfare. In ancient temples, in forgotten bloodlines, in realms beyond time, we've been priests, warriors, oracles, and we've died many times for our truth. This life, it's the return, and the entities of the unseen know it. They recognize the energetic signature of someone who has faced them before. They remember the ones who banished them, who sealed the gates, who protected the sacred codes. You are not new to this. You've returned to finish what you started. That memory lives in your bones. That's why the entities fear touching you, because you've defeated them before. You also carry a frequency that's incredibly disruptive to falsehood. This is the sixth reason demons avoid you. Your presence alone distorts illusions. You don't have to say a word. Just by being in a space, your energy begins to unravel lies. People get uncomfortable. Secrets surface. Masks fall off. Truth gets louder. And entities that rely on deception, they start to panic. They can't maintain their grip in your field because your energy doesn't just carry truth, it demands it. Imagine a room filled with fog. Most people just walk through it hoping to find their way. But you are the flame that burns the fog away. That's how disruptive your frequency is. That's why they don't want to be near you. And finally, the seventh reason, the deepest of all, is this: you have nothing to lose. That's what makes you untouchable. Demons operate through leverage. They exploit attachments. They whisper into the fear of loss of love, status, comfort, identity. But you've already let it all die. You've already walked away from the false self. You've already released the need to be understood, accepted, or praised. You've already tasted ego death and survived it. And so there's nothing left for them to use against you. You're not here to be liked, you're here to complete a mission. You walk with fire in your spine and silence in your soul. You're not here to play nice with evil. You're here to end it. That's why they fear to touch you. Most people spend their entire lives trying to escape their darkness. They're taught to hide it, to be ashamed of it, to smother it beneath layers of forced positivity. But what if the thing you were told to fear was never the enemy? What if your darkness is the very thing that makes you invincible in realms where light alone cannot survive? You see, we've been conditioned to believe that darkness equals evil, when in truth, darkness is depth. It's power. Think about it. Seeds germinate in the soil, stars are born in the void, and transformation always begins in shadows. So when we speak of dark chosen ones, we're not talking about evil beings, we're talking about those rare souls who've been entrusted by the universe to wield the dark, not be consumed by it. And that kind of power, it terrifies anything that feeds on illusion. Your darkness is not something that was given to you by accident. It was encoded into your spiritual blueprint for a reason. It's not the side of you you're supposed to overcome, it's the side of you you're supposed to master. Demons and lower entities don't fear your light. They see light all the time. What they fear is your unapologetic ownership of your shadow. Because when you stop being afraid of yourself, you become unpredictable. You become sovereign. You become a being who can walk into any realm, light or dark, and not lose themselves. That kind of soul is rare. That kind of soul is dangerous to anything that relies on fear to survive. Let me tell you something most spiritual systems won't. Not all light is good and not all dark is evil. There is manipulative light, false guides, deceptive ascended masks, shiny illusions that blind instead of illuminate. And there is sacred dark, the kind that holds truth, that protects the mystery, that births wisdom through pain. Demons understand this. That's why they work harder to deceive those who cling to only light. But when you come along someone who has been through the abyss and came back with eyes wide open, they know they're dealing with a different force, a cosmic weapon. Because your darkness isn't reactive, it's conscious. It's aware. It's chosen. Have you ever felt like your pain had a purpose? Like the suffering you went through wasn't just random, but refining you? That wasn't a fantasy. That was your soul forging a weapon in secret. Every heartbreak, every betrayal, every moment you thought you were breaking was a hammer shaping your edge. And now, on the other side of the agony, what's left is not a victim, but a blade. Not one that harms, but one that cuts through illusion. That's your darkness. That's what you carry. And no entity can steal it, corrupt it, or repurpose it because it was never theirs to begin with. It was forged in your blood, your silence, your sacred rage. And it belongs to you. This is the part that most people never understand. Your darkness is holy. It's not chaotic because it's evil, it's chaotic because it refuses to be controlled. That's why demons don't touch you. Because unlike others, you didn't outsource your power to a savior, a system, or a spiritual identity. You reclaimed it from the ashes. Your darkness isn't wild because you're broken, it's wild because you're whole. And that wholeness radiates a frequency that dismantles every lie they've built their dominion upon. Now, I want to ask you something from the deepest part of your being. When did you first realize your pain was speaking in code? That it wasn't just suffering, it was communicating something, teaching something. breaking false layers to reveal your unshakable core. That's the moment you began to awaken as a dark chosen one. That's the moment your vibration shifted from being a target to being a threat. You didn't become powerful by accident. You were initiated through fire. And now, your presence alone is a disruption to the lower realms. Because you don't just carry light, you carry truth. The kind of truth that can't be bought, borrowed, or faked. The kind that comes from surviving what others couldn't face. And that truth, wrapped in your sacred darkness, is your weapon. It's your shield. It's your signature. They can mimic light, but they can't mimic you. Here's a truth that very few dare to speak. Possession is not just about rituals, spinning heads, or dramatic exorcisms. Possession happens in much subtler, more insidious ways. It happens when you forget who you are, when you abandon your soul's authority and let something else, fear, shame, addiction, approval, take the throne. That's when the doors open, not because the entities are powerful, but because you handed them the key. But the dark chosen ones, we don't hand over keys, we forge our own gates. And once a soul has truly claimed itself, there is no force celestial or infernal that can override it. To understand why lower entities cannot possess a dark chosen one, you first need to understand what possession really is. It's not about being overpowered. It's about being disconnected. When someone forgets their soul, when they forget their sovereignty, they become vulnerable to anything that offers identity, structure, or guidance. And that's when entities slip in. They don't need to break the door down. They just whisper through the cracks. They say, "Let me help you. Let me guide you. You don't know who you are, but I do." And many fall for it, but not us. Not the ones who have walked through our own inner hells and come out with our names carved in fire. You see, when you've been to the bottom of your own psyche, when you've sat in the silence of your own madness and didn't run, you become unpossessable. Because possession only works on those who abandon themselves. But we have already claimed every part of ourselves. The holy and unholy, the noble and the broken. We've walked through the shame and said, "This is mine." We've faced the guilt and said, "This belongs to me too." We've collected every fragment, every disowned piece, and brought them home. So now, when an entity shows up and tries to offer us power, identity, or false comfort, we laugh. Because we already own ourselves. There's nothing they can offer that we haven't already reclaimed. Let me ask you something that might change everything. What part of yourself are you still afraid to claim? Because that's where the door remains cracked. That's where the whisper can still get in. The moment you touch that place, love it, hold it, own it, your field becomes sealed. Not by force, not by defense, but by wholeness. You don't need to fight lower entities. You need to remember yourself. Because a fully remembered soul is untouchable. This is what the old mystics meant when they spoke of divine embodiment. It's not about being perfect or saintly. It's about being fully present in your soul. When your soul fully inhabits your body, your mind, your energy field, there's no room for anything else. Your frequency becomes so stabilized, so anchored in truth, that distortion cannot enter. The demons, they circle, sure, they test the perimeter, but they bounce off an energetic wall they can't decode. Because what you carry is not just light. It's not just dark. It's source. Pure, unfiltered, embodied source. And no being that thrives on separation can survive in that field. You know what else they fear? Your silence. Not the passive kind, not avoidance, but the kind of silence that vibrates with presence. Because in that stillness, you're not just meditating. You're listening. You're remembering. You're invoking the memory of every time you chose your soul over survival. Every time you chose truth over comfort. Every time you stood alone, bleeding, breaking, and still said, "I will not abandon myself." That silence becomes a song only higher realms can hear. And the lower ones? They flee from it, because it reminds them of what they lost and what they can never take from you. You've got to understand, possession only works when someone is empty. But the dark chosen ones are full of grief, rage, wisdom, joy, shadow, and light. We are not hollow vessels waiting to be filled. We are temples already claimed, already inhabited, already sovereign. And that sovereignty is the ultimate shield. It's not flashy, it's not loud, but it is absolute. And once you realize that, once you truly embody it, you don't need to protect yourself with rituals or mantras. You are the ritual. You are the shield. You are the law. There is a moment in every dark, chosen one's journey when something inside clicks, and it's subtle. There's no thunder, no lightning, no dramatic revelation. It's quieter than that, like a whisper from the soul that says, I'm done, not done in despair, done in detachment, done playing the game. The game of proving yourself, defending your energy, fighting invisible wars with entities that feed on your attention. And in that moment when you stop reacting, stop fearing, stop feeding the system with your energy, that's when the final layer of your power locks into place. That's when they flee. Because now you're not just unafraid, you're unavailable. This is what most people never realize. The spiritual war isn't fought with holy water or sacred chants. It's fought through attention, through energy. Every fear you chase, every illusion you battle, every shadow you argue with, it all feeds the same system. It keeps you in the loop, the cycle, the game. But when you see through it, when you recognize the pattern for what it is, a distraction, you step outside the grid. And from that place, nothing can reach you. Not because you're hiding, but because you're no longer playing. You stop needing to defeat demons. You stop trying to cast them out. You stop fearing their presence, because now you understand they are powerless without your participation. Your fear was their food. Your reaction was their invitation. And now, you've taken back the one thing they can't survive without your energy. That's the final blow. Not the sword, not the spell, your indifference. Not coldness, but clarity. A knowing so deep, so ancient, so embodied that it radiates through your aura like a signal. Not here, not ever again. Ask yourself this: what are you still reacting to that no longer deserves your energy? Because that's the residue, that's the last hook. The entities don't need to possess you if they can just keep you distracted fighting ghosts, chasing signs, fearing your own power. But when you stop reacting, you reclaim the throne. You realize the game was rigged from the start, not to defeat you, but to awaken you. And now that you're awake, they can't touch you. Not because you left the board. You're not here to prove anything anymore. Not to them. Not to the world. You're not here to show how light you are, how holy, how protected. You're simply here to be, to walk in your embodiment, to radiate such stillness, such raw presence, that even the darkest forces recognize your field as sacred ground. They don't flee because you threaten them. They flee because they can't find you. You've become invisible to their frequency. You're no longer broadcasting pain, fear, insecurity, or the need to be seen. You're broadcasting sovereignty. And sovereignty is silent. It doesn't scream. It doesn't chase. It just is immovable, unshaken, eternal. This is the final reason demons fear touching dark, chosen ones. Because we stopped playing. We stopped needing validation. We stopped fearing judgment. We stopped trying to be good or light. We owned our whole selves, our rage, our grief, our hunger, our silence. And in doing so, we became complete. We became closed circuits. And a closed circuit doesn't leak energy. It doesn't need protection. It is protection. And now you walk not as someone afraid of darkness, but as someone who carries it wisely, respectfully, powerfully. You are not a soldier in the war anymore. You are the terrain, the battlefield itself, the sacred ground where falsehood cannot root. You are not playing the game because you are the end of the game. So if you've ever wondered why the shadows pull away when you step in, why certain energies vanish when you enter the room, why the attack stopped once you stopped explaining yourself, it's because you remembered. You remembered who you are. And once you remember, you're no longer in the arena. You are the storm they cannot predict, the silence they cannot decode, the darkness they cannot erupt. And from here on out, you don't need to fight evil. You just need to be who you came here to be, the one they fear, the one they couldn't touch, the dark chosen one. Now walk. Not in fear, not in pride, but in knowing, because they already saw you coming, and they're already gone.